Serena Calario uses a program called Starry Night that enables her to create and project vivid lessons on the planetarium's dome. The students have a similar version on their laptops.
I have control of the program Starry Night on the dome, but they get to control their own program when they use it on the laptops to see their own angles of the planets and land on the planets and do what they want to do with the planets.
Even here, where the stars entertain, there's hands-on activities.
It's more of an inquiry-based model where the kids are learning on their own and discovering on their own as a teacher, as a guide. And that's not a traditional classroom.
'21st century skills are needed. STEM education is needed in public schools, science and technology, engineering, and math. 21st century skills are based on flexibility, a balance, innovation, self-direction, monitoring one's learning, efficiently managing time, committing to lifelong learning, social skills, productivity and accountability, demonstrating diligence, positive work ethic and integrity, leadership and responsibility, problem solving, leveraging strengths, attaining of common goals, setting and meeting high standards, and delivering quality work on time.
To be successful, you have to know the difference between failing and losing, because most people misinterpret the word failure and what it is to lose. And I think people need to learn, in order to be successful, people need to know the difference, because you're going to have a lot of losses in your life, but you need to recover from them and keep on moving and know that's not failing. It's just getting back up and being determined to move on.
So, as a parent of elementary school children, how do you feel about the educational system incorporating science, technology, engineering, and math into your child's curriculum?
Well, I definitely feel that it's not incorporated as much as it should be. There's so much focus on the intervention programs and getting test scores up that my children don't need the intervention programs, and yet they don't get any enrichment programs either. There's very little technology
in their school.
There's very little focus on science at all, and they have maybe half an hour 2 or 3 days a week of science, and it's not enough. With the Common Core Standards assessments that are coming up, you can tell that all of these children that don't have the technology background.
So as far as schools, I think, technology is a big thing. It's definitely, shaping our world these days. If teachers were a little bit more hands-on with students, if they brought more computers into the classroom, things like iPads, iPods are coming in to, help students learn different things, even students with disabilities and things, where those types of things could help them. That's definitely something I think that we can change and include into our education.
Hi, my name is Greg Porter, and I am the Director of Computing Services at San Jose State University, and I'm going to supervise a group of computer professionals. And so I guess from that point of view, what would I change about training tomorrow's computer professionals? First off, it's hard to teach tech if you don't know tech, and so I think if your teachers are like our faculty, they really struggle, some of them really struggle with being technically competent when it comes to technology. In a lot of cases, the kids know more than they do, and it's hard to teach if you don't know what you're teaching. That would be a big change. I think that a lot of times technology is kind of treated as a bolt-on component to other regular curriculum, the old chalk dust curriculum from 50 years ago, ABCs and all that. I think that tech should be in more of an integral part of the curriculum and not just a bolt-on.
Leaders facilitate STEM integration by encouraging project-based learning. which motivates, energizes, reinforces, and rewards natural curiosity and interest. To reinvent teachers to become facilitators, to provide inspiring, rich classroom environments, to provide training and support for teachers, to communicate STEM with parents and community, to provide technical support with expert teachers, to fund STEM classroom materials. 21st century skills. Leaders need to provide collaborative, ongoing, research-based professional development programs focused on both content and pedagogy for all mathematics and science teachers. The California Space Education and Workforce Institute in Pasadena, California, utilizes this powerful diagram to guide STEM for grades kindergarten through higher education.
Tonight is the challenge that you have in front of you as future leaders of schools, and what I would challenge you to do tonight in a very short time. And that is that 100 years ago, kids had to go to schools to get their knowledge. They had to go listen to a teacher speak because there wasn't the internet. They didn't have a smartphone. They didn't have access to that knowledge. They had a teacher, and that was their internet. And they went to a school building, and they listened to a teacher lecture and talk and tell them knowledge. And then they went from there. There is not a single thing that a kid needs to go to school now to learn. There is not one piece of knowledge that a kid needs to show up to a school to learn. Sorry. Trust. We've been going through this at my sites, and a lot of it's had to do with trust as me as their leader. So when I've told them I really don't care if our API goes up or down 20 points, it took us a couple of years, the first 2 years, for them to watch me when our API went up 20 points, and I didn't really even talk about it. And we just didn't address it. And trust in when I say, go ahead and take risks. And we set goals at the beginning of the year. And then at the end of the year, when people would take some risks, and maybe they didn't play out the way that they wanted it, my actions spoke loudly when I would say, okay, I mean, you gave it a go. And so I think it's trust building, and it's setting a culture amongst your staff and your students that you practice what you preach, and that you're taking risks, and we're letting go of standardized test scores, and we're embracing this new challenge and doing what's best for kids.
Engineering skills. As Time Magazine reports, 9 out of 10 jobs in 2018 will be engineering related. Students need 21st century skills to enter the engineering field. In order to do this, funding for materials for project-based learning is needed. School and district leaders need to take risks and allow students and teachers to take risks. Allow students to think outside the box, adopt a learn-by-doing approach. We cannot solve the problems we face today at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Albert Einstein. Building capacity for change. The definition of capacity for change is the school is ready for the desired change. The primary purpose for change in schools is to improve the instructional program and student achievement. When instructional changes are initiated, there is often resistance. The resistance can be minimized if the school has the capacity for change. The capacity for change is likely to exist if the leader of the change process creates an environment where stakeholder involvement is respected and the programs implemented reflect high-quality standards and expectations. So there are basically 4 elements to organizational capacity. The first one is human capital, that's the people. The second one is the material capital, the funding, the time, the facilities. The third one is the strategic relationships, state and federal partnerships and industry. And the fourth one is the social capital, the parents and the community.
What up, ELAB? In the next video, you're going to see Grant Lynchman, who in September of 2012 set off to discover what schools are doing to prepare their students for the evolving future. In the span of 3 months, he covers 21 states, 64 schools, and taps into the brains of over 500 educators. Hope you enjoy the clip.
change is really hard, and I think we have sort of allowed ourselves to take that on. There was a day in South Carolina. I visited a school in Charleston, and this is 2/3 of the way into the trip, and for many, many schools, every school I visited, we talked about how hard change was and the stages of grief, et cetera, and I visited this school in Charleston, and there was a senior administrator who had literally her head in her hands like this, and she just says, "I don't know why it should be this hard." We talked about that. That afternoon I was driving west up through the piney woods of South Carolina, and I think it was because I'd been reading a book about the Berlin airlift that suddenly it came to me. I said, you know what? No, the Berlin airlift was hard. Homesteading the Kansas plains in the 19th century was hard. Raising children in poverty, if you're a single mom, that's hard. And going to the moon was hard. These are what we do. We're Americans. We do hard things. A young person going to stand their post in the dust of Kandahar in eastern Afghanistan for a year, that's hard. And saying goodbye to that child as their parent for that year, that's hard. Change at most of our schools is uncomfortable. It's complicated. It's messy. But I ask people to really look deeply inside themselves and think about what's the difference between hard and uncomfortable, and let's get beyond that.